Hey everybody, and welcome to the Premodern Showdown Series 3. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined tonight by Flint Aswell. Say hi, Flint.
Hi, everybody.
All right, so tonight we have a matchup between John Grudzina and Tom Metelsky. So that will be our first match, and then our late night match will feature Ron Taylor against Brian Durkin. So let's look at our band screen for our first matchup. This will show us what decks the players brought and which one they cannot play. So John has Survival Elves, the Star Spangled Slaughter, and Prison Oath, while Tom has brought Goblins, Psychotog, and the Devourer combo. So Prison Oath has been banned for John, and the Devourer combo has been banned again for Tom. So let's jump over to our decks so that everyone can find out what they're playing. John will be playing the Star Spangled Slaughter deck. So we've kind of talked about this deck a number of times. We've had it played every week, I think, so
Just
far.
running it back.
Yep. So this mid-rangey blue-white-red sometimes control, sometimes could be a little bit aggressive, but the creature suite is Mother of Runes, Meddling Mage, and Lightning Angel. And then there's lots of removals with Fire Ices, Lightning Bolts, and Swords of Plowshares. A little bit of interaction with Memory Lapse, and then some smoothing with Portent and Predict. And that's kind of what it is. So he will be playing against Goblins. So if anyone was watching our match earlier this week, we had the same matchup. It was Star Spangled Slaughter against Goblins. While the Goblins deck was a green-red deck, uh, I mean, in this matchup, I think they're pretty much functionally the same. And just a quick glance at the sideboard, it doesn't look like there's anything like super impactful. So I guess the biggest difference with this mono red list that Tom has is there's four main deck Goblin Kings, and I guess that's probably a little bit better, but I don't think it's like something that really swings the matchup. Is there any takeaway that you have from seeing this last week, or just comparing this list to what Jared played?
It looks very similar. I think it's just going to come down to how many of the go wide cards Tom is able to draw and how many of the wastelands Tom is able to draw.
Yep. Well, I'll go over to our key card slide, and it was easy for me because I didn't have to do any changing, so I just left it what it was on Tuesday. So the lightning bolt or swords to plowshares or even fire ice are like the important cards. Those quick early interaction cards are just slow the goblins down a little bit, and then the pyroclasm on the sideboard is a card I think the goblin players need to respect, just because it is a way to sweep the board and could change the way that the Goblins player plays. From the Goblins' perspective, I think Goblin Ringleader is really interesting just because it is a way to gain card advantage. A lot of what the Patriot blue, white, red deck has is one for one removals, and so if you're able to resolve a Ringleader, then you're actually getting card advantage and could put you ahead. And then Pile Driver, I noted the protection from blue seemed pretty relevant. That there are certain spots where the Star Spangled Slaughter deck was looking to block, but uh, Meddling Mage or Lightning Angel are both blue, so they are not able to block a Pile Driver. And there are certain times when, if they're just caught without a removal spell, that guy can do a chunk of damage. So we'll see if. So on our Tuesday, we had the result that the Goblins deck took it down. I guess one thing that did happen was Wasteland was kind of a key part against the three color deck. So I guess that is a card that could be up on the screen. It'll be interesting to see how Tom attacks the mana base of John. But let's jump down to the match. But you can let them know that they can start. We have John
Done.
on our left with the Star Spangled Slaughter deck, Tom on the right with Goblins. John has won the die roll, so he will be on the play. So I am going to set up a poll so everyone can make their prediction. And Flint, if you want to keep everyone informed of what's going on.
Well, of course, we have a turn one lackey from Tom. So I was living the dream. Uh, John plays the second land. Looks like a beautifully foiled Shivan Reef and passes back. I have to assume he has some removal in hand. I'm going to see if Tom wants to play that second goblin first, maybe? No, he takes it. Oh, goodness. All right. So what's he put in play? Is it Siege Gang? It is a Siege Gang.
All right. I like how I always put these up, and then like I feel like the game just swings in like a drastic measure. So already I think people have a pretty big incentive. Like things look pretty good for Tom when you're putting a Siege King commander into play. All right,
Yeah.
this lackey's getting memory lapse, but it's not in a spot where I think Tom really minds. So
I mean, that's the textbook, best opener for goblins
mhm.
in most situations. It's pretty good. Yeah, Jared, very shiny. Very, very shiny. Once again, John making everyone cry at the sheer brilliance of his collection.
So it's interesting that John was on the play, and I didn't see if he had mulliganed or not. But given that he would have had 2 mana, so then any bolt, any swords, or any fire ice would have taken out a goblin lackey, and he didn't have any of those cards. I'm
Didn't have white mana for swords, technically.
sure, I guess, but I mean, if you're at 7 cards and you don't have a an answer to lackey on the play, I feel like I'd be incentivized to just to go back to 6 cards.
Yeah.
But
We do see the lackey get predicted into the graveyard. So a little bit of card advantage there, but we're just seeing even more card advantage here from Tom,
yeah,
unfortunately for John.
but we've kind of talked about it in the last match that because so much of the removals, at least in the main deck, are 1-for-1s, that uh, it's hard for John to ever kind of catch up from that point. So we see a quick concession, and already at this point we have Tom up a game. So barely just getting seated, and we already have finished game 1. Oh, someone's asking about if you got a haircut or you should just have it pulled back.
Just have it pulled
I
back.
wonder how often we have just your hair as a topic of conversation.
I don't know. Let's go back and rewatch all the videos and see.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back to the decks to see if the sideboards. I think John's list is almost identical to what James played. I mean, I think there might be some Blue Blast instead of Hydro Blasts, but and I think there's Reflecting Pools instead of Crossus's Catacombs, but other than that, I think functionally it stays the same. We saw Pyroclasm, the Blue Elemental Blasts, and Slice and Dice come in. Do you remember what cards James had taken out? Just to disenchant. I don't
I think
remember the other cards.
he took out his memory lapses
Okay.
as
I think that's what
well.
we talked about. So,
Yeah.
um, so I guess nothing really, I, nothing really drastic changes. I mean, with only 2 Pyroclasms, I guess 2 Pyroclasms and a Slice and Dice, it like at least changes a little bit of the threat of being able to sweep the board, but it's not like I mean, Slice and Dice isn't that great until you get clearing the board until you get to 6 mana, which is a lot of mana, and there's only two
For sure.
Pyroclasms, so it's not like I mean, Tom I think will think about Pyroclasm, but it's not like it's always going to be in play. All right, this Goblins list, we see a Red Elemental Blast and 3 Pyroblasts, so I think there's potentially 4 blasts that could come in. Though I guess I mean like the blue cards, other than killing I guess killing Meddling Mage is okay, but killing Lightning Angel is really good. But other than that, like the blue cards aren't the key role players. I guess Blue Elemental Blast does come in, but it's not like Predict and Memory Lapse are like the haymakers in this matchup. So I mean, I still think they come in. I would take out Goblin Tinker and I don't know what else is like the worst card, but it's not like Pyroblast is at its best here. You did talk about pyrokinesis last time. Do you know if Jared brought those had brought those in?
Um, you mean James? Wait,
No, the pyrokinesis is in the
yeah,
goblin
James.
sideboard.
James was on Patriot, right? Oh, Jared was on
Yes.
Goblins. That's right. Wow, I'm totally backwards here. I think he did bring in pyrokinesis. It's, I mean, it's definitely good in certain scenarios. How many gem palms is he running? 3? Or those gem palms? The
I
list.
can't tell from this text image. Let me
I
look up the
think they
or
are.
this image. Let's see. Tom
Protest.
he has one sharpshooter. He has four fanatics.
2 gem palms.
Yes, two gem palms. Okay.
I might bring in maybe 1 pyrokinesis, but again, I'm not a goblins player.
All right, I'll jump down to the match. I didn't see the poll prediction, but Anarchy is in the sideboard, but I don't think it's really necessary in this matchup. There's not like any cards that really I think Tom was that worried about.
What do you think about Sparksmith? Puggles4 mentioned that.
Um,
Tutorable answer to Exalted Angel
sure.
in some scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, like, at that point, like, I think you just would get Gem Palm because it's a card that can't be answered by removal and can't be countered. Like, if you're just looking at a tutor target, and you have to have the same kind of board presence to deal that much damage. To me, it just seems a little bit narrow. Like, I think I would bring in Pyrokinesis before Sparksmith, just for if I'm thinking about getting rid of creatures. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a reasonable point that like John is going to be on the back foot, and if he's ever playing creatures, and Tom has a Sparksmith that he can just use his life total, but it just seems like a more fragile body that is kind of situational. Get ready for those pyroclasms.
Oh, yeah. Looks like John's going to take a mulligan here, and much to his dismay, Tom's going to keep an opening 7.
Yeah, I guess whenever I play against goblins and they keep a 7, I'm like, all right, they have a lackey.
Yeah.
Though this is a matchup where I mean, it's obviously Lackey's very good. We saw it in the first game; it just pretty much single-handedly won. But just given that you know that there are so many removal spells, I often would keep like a decent 7 that didn't have Lackey. When in other matchups, I'm much more willing to mulligan for that Lackey, just because I know it's likely to die in this matchup. So.
Mm-hmm. Looks like John's going to take another mulligan, so not looking great. James says he didn't test the matchup, but it was a lot worse than he thought it was going to be.
The times
worse,
that
worse for red, white, and blue.
from what I played, I always thought that there was at least a slight advantage for the Star Spangled Slaughter deck against goblins. It just has enough tools, I think, to fight what goblins are doing, but obviously it's not guaranteed that you're going to win every game.
Yeah, the games were all close when I played it.
All right, John looking to keep 5 cards, hoping he doesn't have to go down to 4. It doesn't look like it's an easy decision. It looks like he was about to put some cards back and then kind of put them back in his hand. So, okay, he is keeping. He's putting 2 in the bottom, and he'll lead things off with a Flooded Strand.
All right.
Well, Tom has a 1-drop. It is a Mob Fanatic, so not quite as scary. Definitely not as scary.
Right.
And we have a Reflecting Pool, so
We saw a similar play from Jared too, right? Where he kind of let off with a Fanatic, held the Lackey back.
Yeah, well, the Fanatic always had a Mother of Runes to shoot down in our
That's
Tuesday
true.
match, where here this Fanatic is just attacking for 1. I mean, it is a very good insurance plan against the Mother of Runes, which, if it comes down, could be a little bit problematic if it's active. The Goblins deck might have to use 2 cards to get rid of it. But here we see Tom following up his Fanatic with a turn 2 Pile Driver, and also has a Wasteland, which is something to note because, I mean, you could take out Gemstone Mine, you could take out Reflecting Pool, and kind of try and disrupt John that way. All right, so we see John using his gemstone mine, so presumably it's okay. So
Interesting.
if he's not fetching there, what does that mean? Because he could have got
Swords are important,
right, but wouldn't you just do that first, and then you wouldn't have
and
to?
then
I
yeah,
guess
you
it
could
wouldn't.
fetch if you need to.
I guess it wouldn't make a difference. I guess if you plan on using your mana, I guess I'm just if he's not using his flooded strand, what is that indicating? I guess because if he got an island or a plains, then he could have not used a counter from the gemstone mine. Okay, yeah, I guess if he thinks it's gonna get wasted if it's the only option. Yeah, I guess yeah, if he like wants to I guess what one mana removal spell would he want to interact with another 2-drop, but did he notify us what card he named with the meddling mage?
Ringleader. Goblin
Okay.
ringleader.
Goblin Ringleader. That seems to be the trend. And I think in most cases it is like we talked about the card advantage engine for the Goblin deck.
So John let him go to combat.
Okay, so War Chief came down and he is going to exile the pile driver.
Tom goes up to 21.
John goes to 16.
Everybody in chat's like, it had to be ringleader.
Well, some of the people are also competitors. I'm guessing it was in the chat group that they're in. So I think it was less of suspicion and actual confirmation.
That's totally fair. Who was it? Was it? Oh yeah, it was Brian and Ron. Fair enough.
All right, we see a bolt here. So John untapped and then uses the reflecting pool to take out the war chief. So from this point, it's not bad. I guess the awkward thing with like meddling mage here is like it just like doesn't block anything. It doesn't want to block a war chief. It's not going to want to block any other 1/1 because then you finish it off with a Mog Fanatic. Tom uses his Wasteland on the Gemstone Mine. So right now his Reflecting Pool, I guess that would be a reason to wait. Yeah, because you might want blue mana out of it. So John really looking for his mana to work out because right now just white. He's not able to cast very many spells.
Yeah. It's interesting. He didn't play land last turn. He didn't play one this turn. It almost makes me wonder if Tom had just wasted one of the lands earlier. I mean, he's still in good shape, but I wonder how that would have changed the course of the game.
Yeah, it might have been a spot where like if Tom doesn't have a third land or like a fourth land that
Sure.
he wants to cast his War Chief first and then he can use it. So or maybe he just wants to play it on curve and feels like he'll be like he won't get punished. Like there's not. I guess Pyroclasm would be the worst thing. I guess to come out of like one turn, but there's not really any huge thing that John can do. He's not going to be able to play Lightning. I guess he would be able to play Lightning Angel from that spot, so maybe that is a reason. So Goblin Matron is searching. Oh, gets a Ringleader. All right, so I guess Tom's either just in it for the long game or he's gonna kill this meddling mage. All right, an attack for 1.
Getting in there.
All right, and now we have so there's a Pyroblast taking out the meddling mage. Okay, and now we have an attack for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So John down to 8.
Oof.
I think he pretty much needs Pyroclasm, I guess.
You can see a scoop here.
Nope. Looks like John is not able to get it done. So
Ugh.
looks like in our PSS showdown, the we've had the Goblins 2 and the Star Spangled Slaughter 0. So let's quick jump in to listen to our players. Hey guys. Maybe they cannot hear us yet, but
Hello.
oh, hi there. So the rough mana base of the 3-color deck looked like it. I guess the mulligan to 5 also was a little bit punishing, but were the hands just not good enough, or was the mana not working, or what were the hands that you threw back in that second game?
The 7 card was Island, Shivan Reef, and then really just no. I mean, basically, it had no turn 1 answer to Lackey.
Okay.
And then the 6 card had no lands.
Okay. And then in the first game, because you were on the play, and then Tom played a turn 1 Lackey, and then even on your second turn, you didn't have anything to interact with that Lackey. So what was your hand that you were... Was it something that you were hesitating on to keep, and you thought it was like, all right, this is probably good enough, or was it just, I guess, did you forget about Lackey, or like, I guess, most hands I feel like I would be mulliganing to interact with Lackey on turn 1 or turn 2 with that deck.
I mean, I didn't know for sure he was on.
Oh, that's true. Okay, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, the players aren't aware. I'm obviously in the know because I get everything set up. But yes, you do not know for sure that he's playing Goblins. Okay.
But I mean, I had the swords and I had a Mother of Runes, so
Okay.
like I figure if I can draw any of my burn spells because I can cast them because I have the red mana or a white source, then I'd be fine. I mean, the Mother of Runes is not the best, but the swords would have been fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it obviously, I mean, I basically figured, okay, he might be on it. I've got a decent number of outs if he is.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. I was forgetting that you it was only a chance that he would be on Goblins. That wasn't known for sure. I forgot about that aspect. So.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys want to talk about the thought process of how you approach the bans? Was it pretty clear cut, or was it kind of a toss up anyway, or is it just you didn't really want to play against this deck and didn't really care about the other ones, or what was the thought process behind
it? It was
the
outlandishly obvious.
Okay.
All 3 of his decks have pretty bad matchups versus Oath, so it was obvious he was banning Oath.
Okay.
And then Devourer is his. I didn't want to play it with Elves, and I didn't want to play with the Solution. So
okay. So Tom, after you saw the bans, did you feel like? Do you prefer did you want to play against Elves, or did you want to play against Patriots, or did you feel like it was pretty close either way?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be close either way. I think I was assuming Devour was going to be banned, so I was already kind of planning ahead. And then, like John said, like I feel like most people might ban that Prison Oath deck. Like can be a miserable experience to play against. But Goblins has game against. I've never played Goblins against Elves, but I tested a little bit with it with my brother. So seems like Goblins is pretty good there too. And then I thought Goblins would be good also against the blue white red deck because I don't know, they're trying to 1-for-1 and their mana is a little shaky. So if they don't I was hoping for a Lackey hand. So the game 1 wasn't almost even really a game. I kind of had a really good draw, and then but you got to have that answer, and it's just like threat by threat, and it's hard to 1-for-1. So I felt pretty good, but I knew John was good, so I knew it was gonna be tight. But even game 2, just being he had to mull to 5, so that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt playing elves was a bad choice against goblins.
I think you made the right decision though. I'm sure when you saw I didn't want to play against the Prison Oath. I think you made the right choice because elves is honestly, I think elves is really bad against Psychotog too. So you know what I mean. So John, I think you went the right way because if I was on Psychotog, I think you're favored and on the solution.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the elf matchup is versus Psychotog is that bad. You just, it's really just the post board four cards that you have. I would have rather played elves versus Psychotog, I think, than playing against goblins in general, to be honest.
That does make sense. Yeah, I didn't realize how like playing the match out against elves and goblins. I think goblins is like I don't know what percentage breakdown you want to give it, but I think elves is very behind, especially after the sideboard.
Yeah, this pyrokinesis are a disaster.
Well, I was
Yeah,
gonna say the first game, I think like just having a sharpshooter and the elves doesn't have. I guess it has Masticore, but you can really be caught off guard with just a sharpshooter against the elves deck.
Yeah, it seems like unwinnable for elves. If you get that thing active, it's like over.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna go back in the chat real quick, see if there's anything. Yeah,
Actually, I don't know what all you. I don't know what all you think though. I boarded in one Anarchy, just because I can't beat Exalted Angel and figured his meddling mage and hoping all these things would be in play or something. But
sure.
I wasn't sure if it was good or not.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a way for you to get out of a bad spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to board in both, but I was like, I'll try one, I guess. But I mean, it didn't do anything. But
Yeah. All right. Well, it was quick and dirty, I guess. So sorry for the quick games, John. But good luck in the upcoming rounds, and thanks guys for joining us tonight.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
all right,
See you next week.
All right. So I will award people their channel points for making the correct prediction. Looks like for the people that voted, they all voted for Tom. All right, I'll bring up our schedule. Do we have any confirmation if our second match is able to start a little bit early?
They're both ready whenever.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we have Ron and Brian waiting in the wings, and we're gonna run some friends of the show, quick advertisement, other pre-modern resources that you can check out while we get them set up, and then we should be back for our second match for a little bit early treat for everyone. So we will see you soon. Hey everybody, we have returned. So Ron and Brian are now set up for their match, and we will get things kicked off. So let's jump right over to the band screen for these players. And that's wrong screen. We will go to the bands now that everyone knows what they're playing. Okay, so the banned decks for Ron, his Replenish deck has been banned, while Brian Durkin's Sly has been banned. So, which one are you sad about?
Replenish.
Okay, I didn't know if you were excited. You really wanted to see Sly. I don't know.
No.
So the decks available to Ron are Suicide Black and Prison Oath, while Brian has the 4-color Terrageddon and then Survival Elves. So we were kind of joking about earlier that all the elves decks were getting banned, and no one banned elves tonight. So if we go over to the decks, I guess if you had a quick eye, you'd see what they were playing. But Ron has chosen to play Prison Oath. So if you're not familiar with this deck, one component of this deck is Oath of Druids and then Phantom Neshoba. So if they play a creature, you can play an Oath, and you'll just get a really powerful creature that can gain you life, tramples, is kind of resilient to damage. And so there's just the 3 Phantom Neshobas, so if it's triggering, it's always going to get that. Against decks that don't have that many creatures, it has Funeral Pyre, which can put a token into play under your opponent's control. And then beyond that, the present elements of the decks are cards like Sphere Resistance, then also like Wastelands and Russian Imports. So it has ways to attack the mana base of a deck, or a card like Dust Bowl that can do a lot of work. So slow the game down, in either of the way of like they don't want to play a creature because of they're afraid of Oath of Druids, or you're using sphere effects or Russian imports to kind of slow down the game. So the Prison Oath has kind of evolved from the traditional green white Oath decks and has been pretty popular and successful in the recent pre-modern metagame. Do you want to add anything about this deck?
I will just say it's probably a good thing we finished our first match early because I have a pretty good guess what Brian decided to play, and I think we're in for a bit of a grind.
All right. Well, Brian has selected to play the 4-color Terrageddon deck, and I'm
That's
excited.
the one.
Yep, I'm excited to see how these decks play out because it does seem like that there is a little bit of like neither deck is likely to kill right away. I guess Ron could come out with a Oath and then use a funeral pyre, or if Brian plays a creature right away. But I think in general these games are going to go longer, and it'll be interesting to see how they want to fight things because I haven't seen this matchup before, and I think there are some neat interactions. What the 4-color Terrageddon deck is doing is looking to get a board presence with either Werebear or Mox Diamond, or even disrupt the opponent with Meddling Mage. But then it's like Haymaker is just the card Armageddon, destroy all the lands. That powers up a Terravor. But the way to set things up is typically with a land tax. And so you could just forego playing a land on turn 1 if with a Mox Diamond, or if you have Undiscovered Paradise, that's a way to play a land tax and then kind of put your opponent in an awkward position. But that'll gain you card advantage, and then also has the Scroll Rack engine, so those cards in combination are really powerful. Allows you to excuse me, get lands out of your deck and then kind of trade those in for looks at different cards, so you can get a lot of new cards really quickly with those 2 cards. So the key cards of this matchup, I'm kind of guessing because I really haven't seen these. So, I mean, it's called Prison Oath. Oath of Druids is a pretty key card. It's a card that Ron wants to play, and it's a card that is probably going to change the way that Brian looks at the match and mulligans, or the way he plays his creatures. He might be reluctant to just run out a turn 2 Werebear if he can't beat an Oath of Druids. So I think that's an important card. And then out of the sideboard, there's a Sacred Ground, which is a nice answer to Armageddon. So it's basically if a land were to destroy from an opponent, if an opponent would destroy one of your lands, put that land into play. So it will be interesting to see if that is a big dynamic and how important, like how does Brian answer that Sacred Ground. A card like Meddling Mage, so if we do look at the list that Ron has for the Prison Oath, it doesn't have a ton of threats that you play. So like Oath of Druids is one, and then Swords to Plowshares, and then Phantom Neshoba. But then the rest of the deck, I don't know if it's right to call it air, but is less impactful cards. They're cards to help set up or slow down the game. And if you're able to kind of shut those cards out, then it could really disrupt Ron's plan to win. If you're able to answer like the Treetop Villages and the mana disruptions from the Wastelands and the ports, and then the Mishra's Factories from coming in. But that is something to look. And then Armageddon is the last card, just being able to sweep all the cards. Yes, do you want to talk about anything on this matchup? I'm going to set up the poll. I know I said I was going to do it early, and I almost forgot, so...
Yeah, go ahead. I would just say that there is just so much interaction in both these lists. I mean, just looking at the sideboards, Ron has a Aura of Silence in his board, and then he has 2 Seals in his main deck. And Brian has a ton of interaction in his sideboard. He's rocking 2 Ray of Revelations and an Abolish out of his sideboard, in addition to, I think, 1 Aura of Silence main. So there's, both of these decks really do run on artifacts and or enchantments, and it's just going to be so interesting to see who draws more of those interactive cards, how Brian chooses to play creatures or not play creatures, depending on whether he draws those cards, and if he plays an early Armageddon. I mean, it's going to be a really interesting and interactive match, hopefully, even though one of the decks is, in theory, a prison deck. So I'm excited to watch it.
All right, I'm excited as well. So with that, I've got the poll up. So quick, get your predictions in before a lackey comes down. Though I don't think we have to worry about that on this matchup. But so we have Ron on the left, and he has Mulligan to 6, and then Brian, that looks like a full 7 for him. Brian is on the play, and he will be kicking things off. So let's see what we've got here. Did you let the players know that they can begin?
I sure did.
Okay.
We see a Windswept Heath from Brian.
Right. So we see a brush land and then a Mox Diamond. So Ron's going to have access to 2 mana. The 2 mana plays usually are Oath of Druids or Sphere of Resistance. We do see the Oath right away.
Pretty good start.
So the other deck that Brian had available was Elves, right? So I don't.
Yeah.
Did the Elves deck have a Windswept Heath? Like, does Ron technically not know what Brian's on? Like that from that first turn?
I mean, I think if Brian's on elves, he's definitely going to play an elf on the first turn, right?
Sure. I think the poll has closed, Jared, but it should have been in the top of like the Twitch chat. We got a Terravor fan. Everyone likes Terravor. I mean, well,
How can you not?
I like Terravor.
Such a cool card. Not my favorite of the graveyard creatures, though, that get power and toughness.
Which one's your favorite?
I think my favorite is probably Tarmogoyf.
Oh, okay.
But in Premodern...
Of the Lurgoyfs you're talking... I thought you were just talking about of that cycle from Odyssey.
In Premodern, it's probably the Revenant, actually.
I thought you were
Because
say,
I love the flavor text.
My brother would make a Cantivore deck. I don't know why, but... Yeah. And it never even got that big, but it was like a 4/4, like 3 mana 4/4 Vigilance. But
Oh, that's awesome. So we got some love for Ron. Also, Mike Arnold says Meddling Mage is really good in this matchup. Obviously, Ron got underneath a potential Meddling Mage, but certainly a very powerful card.
Magnivore is a sweet one and definitely has some history behind it. And I know I have seen a number of players try and play Magnivore in Premodern, so it's always a fun one to do. So on the game state, we have Brian doing his thing with the land tax and scroll rack. I don't know if Ron... Oh, wait, because there's an equal number of lands. So I guess... Did Brian think he was triggering land tax? Or was it just... Maybe he decided he didn't want to scroll rack? But
Said he didn't want to.
Ron can only go for so long of not playing lands. I mean, like, it's not like Brian's going to punish him, per se, but Ron needs more mana to act. I mean, I guess actually maybe not. Maybe if you're just going for a plan, if you're going to play Funeral Pyre, then you could just, because he already has the Oath in play. Maybe I'm thinking too far ahead. Is it just me, or is the PRE in Premodern stands for Papa's Reliving Extended? I do get a lot of extended vibes from this format, but
For sure.
yeah.
I can obviously say, and I know it's the same for you, Mike, that we definitely look at a lot of the old extended lists to get inspiration for maybe archetypes that haven't been played or ones that we knew from back in the day and are like, man, I wonder if we can make this good in Premodern.
Yeah.
Sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's no.
Yeah.
No.
Most of the time, I feel like the competitive decks from Extended are usually pretty decent ideas. It's when you try and go from like a standard deck from back in the day that it's not as powerful. I guess there's different eras of Extended. I'm thinking of more of like it was closer to like the end of where it did overlap into modern framed cards, and that's the extended I think of. But I know extended existed for a long time. So
Yeah. All right. So Brian does search up an orb and runs it out, but still elects not to play land.
the run is contemplating. Okay, so he does play a treetop village. So he says you can activate your land tax. How often do you play against land tax? I feel like you're usually the one playing it, but
I do love land tax. I've actually played against it a lot more, I would say, in the past 6 months than I have in my previous time in Premodern. I think more people are running land tax based decks, whether it's Prison, Pink Prison, or the Terrageddon deck. Um, I'm trying to think. I feel like I've run into a couple of rogue decks that run land tax. Um, so I've seen it more, at least in terms of my matches, but I don't know what it looks like in terms of the monthly meta.
do you change, like, do you forego playing lands against an opponent on a land tax, or do you just kind of suck it up and say, all right, you're going to get the extra basics? Or does it depend on the matchup? Does it depend on your hand? But what would you say is your typical play pattern against a land tax?
I mean, against the land tax, if you can keep them off of the land tax for a long time, then usually that's pretty good. I mean, it really just depends on the deck. I think if I'm playing a deck where I know I have to play lands, then I just kind of bite that bullet and immediately start playing lands and just try to apply pressure. Where things get complicated is where you don't have the pressure in your hand, and you need to play lands to play your draw spells or to play whatever cards are going to help you get your pressure or further your game plan. Then it's kind of this awkward standoff, and you can go a couple of turns and maybe try to sculpt your hand a little bit, but eventually, if you need to break the symmetry, especially if they start running out diamonds, or like Brian's doing, because he's going to advance his game plan even if he's not activating the land tax. So it's really hard, but if there's any way that you can advance your game plan without letting them tax, then you're usually in pretty good shape. So, for example, when I ran the mono white prison deck, I was running land tax, and I ran up against Brian here, and he was on Reanimator, and he kept playing Undiscovered Paradises, and it was brutal for me. And then in another matchup, I played against elves, and they kept bouncing their forests back to their hand with Quirion Ranger. And so, you know, those are the nightmare matchups where you run into decks that can play around your land tax, not let you activate it, and still further their game plan.
All right, so meanwhile, Brian has added another land tax and another scroll rack with another Mox Diamond, while Ron has played a Rishadan port and got in there for 3 with the Treetop Village. So Ron willing to play another land into the now multiple land taxes, and this is kind of like a situation where it feels like Ron doesn't have much control of things. Kind of a miserable feeling. Like your opponent is putting 6 cards in their hand with a scroll rack that they're just able to put some number of those basics back, and or all of them, and get them in a future turn and change those into real cards.
I mean, part of me wonders like how good an Armageddon would be right now, but Ron has to be sandbagging some lands in his hand, right? I mean, that deck just runs so many.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be fine, but it's not even. I don't feel like Brian really needs to. I guess what is there something he's trying to set up first? I guess he can't really. How many ways does he have to remove the oath? Because I guess he wants to do that before or he wants to get to the
Yeah.
point where his uh, Terravor would be bigger than a Phantom Neshoba, and then he could play like Meddling Mage and uh, Terravor.
He has one Seal of Cleansing and wait, excuse me. He has one Aura of Silence in his main deck.
So he does not have a Seal of Cleansing?
No. He has a Seal of Removal.
Yes.
But no Seal of Cleansing main. He does have the Aura of Silence.
Well, Seal of Removal is not nothing against like the token that can preemptively answer a Funeral Pyre.
We have some love for Brian's orderly card arrangement on his battlefield, if you will.
All right, so we do see the Aura of Silence coming out.
Okay. That's pretty good. I feel like Ron just definitely wants Sphere of Resistance in this match just to slow down Brian. I mean, I think a turn 1 Sphere would have been way better than a turn 1 Oath, and obviously hindsight's 2020, but it just slows the Terrageddon deck down so much.
All right, so the Treetop Village gets in there. Ryan's at 13, but there still is a Zurin Orb in play, so not like even if Ron gets him down, I think that Brian would be able to just trade some lands in for life. Things do not look good. I feel like the Funeral Pyre needs to be here, I guess, but then the Aura of Silence is already in play, so you need another Oath at this point. I guess it doesn't look good for Ron in very many scenarios in my head. Do you see a way that he can gain a good board advantage, or do you think it's just going to slowly slip out of his hands here?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I thought he had 2 Treetop Villages, but I guess it's just a forest there with it. I mean, really just pressuring on the ground with villages or factories might be his best game plan right now, just to kind of force Brian to do something. Because Brian's just dirtling, he's sculpting his hand, he's getting everything he needs. And certainly he's down to what, 8 now, I think. I see on the dice. So maybe we missed some points there, but
No, it's a 5/5 and a 3.
okay. So I mean, he's still in a pretty comfortable position. So I think Ron's just basically looking to pressure here.
Yeah, and Brian does have a wasteland that if he wants to take out the Treetop Village, which I don't even think he needs to, because I don't think his life is really pressured that much. But I guess if there were 2 treetops, it'd be a little bit more pressing. But again, there's wasteland and there's Zurin Orb, so I think Brian has enough time to kind of develop more. Just the threat of Armageddon, I think, is kind of tricky for Ron to do much. He doesn't want to play too many lands in play, but then again, if Brian could have an Armageddon in hand, would just say like, okay, if you're going to stop playing lands, then I'm going to just play a bunch of lands and just out mana you, or just always stay ahead. Yeah, talking about Brian being able to draw so many cards with the tax rack engine, I mean, it's entirely possible that even if Oath triggers 3 times, you just be able to exile all 3 Phantom Nishobas with Swords of Plowshares, and then Ron would have to win with Treetop Villages and Mishra's Factories.
Yeah, not ideal.
Because there is Gaia's Blessing in the list, but because Swords exiles it, you wouldn't be able to put it back in. So. The complex decisions of Lantex and Scroll Rack, you definitely feel like you have a lot of control of your draws, but it can take a while to figure out how you want to shape your game plan. Looks like Brian was thinking about activating his Wasteland, but then he went and just played in Undiscovered Paradise. I could see from the chat we do have a split on people who predicted. Someone voted for Ron and someone voted for Brian. So
Ooh.
looks like at least there's a little bit of tension there. Yeah, Jared does say, good thing this match started early. Well,
Right.
it looks like it's tax time. I don't think I've ever seen 4 land taxes in play. At least on the same side. Have you?
No, I've never seen 4. I've seen 3, never 4.
A lot of taxes.
So many taxes.
Okay, a Sylvan Library for Ron. Well, right now, Brian's not doing anything to attack the life total of Ron, so at least Ron could exchange some life for extra cards. But I'm still kind of at a loss of what his game plan is to combat this situation. Because it looks tricky.
I mean, can Brian just tap all of his mana, play an Armageddon, and then cast a Meddling Mage and name Swords to Plowshares, and then just follow it up with a Terravore and win? The Terravore would be the next turn, obviously.
Are you getting rid of the Oath, or are you leaving that in play?
Yeah, you're getting rid of the Oath for sure,
Yeah.
right?
So
But then all Ron has is a Mox Diamond and a library, and he can't remove the Meddling Mage. He won't be able to remove. Okay, he's going to scoop up. Okay, got it.
all right. Ron had seen enough. I think just too much card advantage, or maybe Brian kind of explained a line that he was taking. I don't know. I couldn't hear them, but Ron has seen enough, and Brian takes down game number 1. All right. Let's look at the sideboards. Why don't you talk about these? I am going to make an adjustment. I had Ron's screen cropped, and I'm going to try and fix that for the next game.
All right. So on Ron's end, he's got his Sacred Ground, which will obviously go a long way against the Wastelands. Aura of Silence, also a very good card for Ron. What else does he have? If he wanted to get cute, he could Phyrexian Furnace away the lands in the graveyards, but I don't think it's going to be his line. Totems, probably not good. Null Rod could be good, actually. I don't know if there's a world where you board in Null Rod and maybe you take out some diamonds or something along those lines, because Brian relies on not only the scroll racks, but also on diamonds himself. So in a strange kind of way, even though he has Mox Diamonds in his deck, I think that it potentially could play a role here. I don't know what chat thinks, but those are the ones that immediately come to mind.
It does seem awkward, like, because Mox Diamond is kind of critical to what Ron does, but I would argue that the scroll rack is more important to what Brian is doing, and he also has Mox Diamonds as well. So
it just stymies a lot of Brian's game plan. So it might actually, I think I might actually bring it in. I think those are the main things from my end for Ron. If you want to switch it over to Brian,
yes,
talk about his sideboard.
Just a moment. Got to go back here, and
hey Tom, congrats on the win.
Okay, we have the Terrageddon deck up. So Phyrexian Furnace, I mean, in theory, could come in. I don't think it's that impactful, but Ray of Revelation is definitely a card you want. Seal of Cleansing. Even a card like
Aura of Silence.
I could see bringing in Winter Orb. Like, if Ron is, it's a little bit awkward if he has like Rish's Import and Mox Diamond, but like if he doesn't have Mox Diamond, then like Rish's Import becomes less effective. Treetop Village and Mistress Factory are all much less effective under a Winter Orb. Abolish and Aura Silence, ways to interact with enchantments are good. What cards are bad? I guess you're probably taking out Engineer Plague. I guess you do have the option of like naming Spirit, but I think that's not great.
Yeah.
Probably could take out the Seal of Removal. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably take out the slow removal and the plagues. Like, there are situations where they are good, but I think those are too narrow within the larger game plan. I think the other question is the werebears, right? Werebears are great after your Armageddon, but this is such like a slow game. I almost wonder if Brian wants to develop his board more, and if he's going to play an early creature, it's going to be a meddling mage on something like an oath and force Ron to have the swords for it. There could be a world where you actually just take the werebears out. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, or what chat thinks.
I think that's something reasonable to do. There are like a bunch of cards that Brian can bring in. So
Sure.
because the game can go so long and you are kind of disincentivized to play creatures, then I can see it. But then you also could go from a standpoint of I'm bringing in two Revelation to seal cleansing and abolish and an aura silence. I'm just gonna blow up the oath and then just attack with creatures
Beat
or
down.
whatnot. So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
it'll be interesting to see how the plan works. But I guess I didn't realize how many ways to destroy enchantments Brian had. So I talked about Sacred Ground as a card that might come into play, and it just seems like Brian has so many answers that yeah, if a Sacred Ground comes down and Brian has an Armageddon that he wants to cast, he can just wait, and it's not going to be that hard to find a way to answer a Sacred Ground.
It's true. I mean, I think that he's probably still going to bring it in, obviously. But let's talk about the cards here. So I think the plagues come out, and the seal comes out, right? So that's 3. So what are you bringing in? You're bringing in an aura,
I
a
think Ray
seal,
Revelations are better than
and a
those.
ray.
I think Ray Revelations is the first card. Well, okay. So Oath. How many other enchantments are there? I guess you are expecting Seal or the Sacred Ground, but I don't know. Just whenever you have a Ray of Revelation against the Oath of Druids, it just feels like it's so good.
Oh, I think both rays are definitely going to come in. Realistically, I think he brings in all 5.
Mm-hmm.
But we're definitely going to like take out the plagues and the seal of removal. What other 2 cards do you take out? Do you shave a werebear?
Probably Werebears, I guess.
Do you shave? You probably don't shave the Sylvan. The card advantage is too good in this match. Maybe werebear.
Yeah.
Maybe it's still werebear. Okay. Should I let him know?
Sure.
All right. Feel free to chime in chat if you play these decks. Let us know what you think.
All right. We got a full screen run now. Now we can see the dice that he has.
It's a lovely pun from Jared Doucette there. Thanks, Jared. I appreciate that. A bit unbearable, if you will, but
Yeah, just board in more cards as you board out. I'm sure I've done that before, but I try not to. I try and be disciplined enough to keep my deck at 60 cards. Ron will kick things off with a Treetop Village, and Brian has the lovely play of land tax. So Ron gets to think. How does he want to play this? Trigger the land tax right away? He will. He leaned to play one card and then he played something else. So Sylvan Library comes down.
Nice. What is that? 4th edition? Looks like.
Yeah, it's hard to. I guess I know there's a 0 on the 5th edition one.
The 5th edition one has the 0.
Yeah, it's hard for me to tell, but I like the 5th edition mostly because I just don't like the 4th edition card frame, the border.
I don't disagree with you. 4th edition's pretty nostalgic for me, so I have a fondness for it, even though I'm not entirely sure it's justified.
I think there's a lot of people that like 4th edition cards, but I'm not one of them. So
it's funny because back in the day, I initially didn't like 5th edition because the art was different, but it's really grown on me since, and I appreciate kind of the quirky differences
Mhm.
and like the art from fourth edition less, but there's still that damn nostalgic part of me that's like, I just played so much fourth edition that I still like it.
All right, so Metal Mage is coming down. If I had to guess, this is naming Oath of Druids. Otherwise, this is a little bit of a risky play. I guess you could have just a way to answer Oath of Druids, and then maybe you're just naming swords or something. But
I think I would name swords.
yeah. Well, if you
It really, obviously,
if
it depends on what Brian
I was gonna
has.
say if
But
you didn't have an answer to Oath here, would you? I think I would. I would either not name swords or not play the Meddling Mage.
yeah.
All right, Ron converts 4 life into an extra card and then plays a Sphere of Resistance. He does stay at 2 mana, so land tax will not trigger again. But I guess, well, like if we just stayed at this spot, Ron kind of has to play a land before Brian does. But I guess Brian chooses to. Let's say because he could just attack with the Meddling Mage over and over.
the sweet beats, 10-turn clock. Ooh, we do see the winter orb, Mike. Good call.
Okay. So why
Brian
are
doesn't have the rack.
Oh, I'm like, why are all 3 lands tapped? But it's because Sphere Resistance is in play. So yeah, I guess this is kind of real awkward for Ron here now that like Sphere Resistance is in play and now Winter Orb is. I guess a lot of his interactions are cards with like Rishon Import or Treetop Village, but those are pretty poor under this Winter Orb. This is
Brian just wants to slam a wasteland.
this seems pretty difficult for Ron. I guess if Brian attacked with the Meddling Mage here, would you snap off a block with the Mishras? Because it is summoning sick. You would wait. All right.
Well, I don't know because he doesn't have white mana for his swords. I might actually snap block.
Yeah, I think I would take the opportunity to block. I guess it is costly. You lose a land and you are tapping another one, which under the Winter Orb would cost you some time. Brian
now I would not.
Brian has a
wait.
Dromar's Cavern. So the layer lands. It's cool to see these in the different types of decks and how they kind of take advantage of picking up lands.
Just an FYI, Oath of Druids was the card that was named.
Okay.
Yeah. Ooh, so now I don't like that. I think he's got a swords. Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ron could just say like, I needed to take a risk from this position. So he gains 2 and then loses 2. This is not the beatdown that I expected, but it looks like it has the potential to get the job done.
There's also a world where, Brian can destroy his own Winter Orb if he really needs to. He doesn't need to right now, but he just has so much removal in his deck.
All right, so Rishon Import has been added to Ron's side. How many lands are in the graveyard right now? None? Okay. I was thinking if a Terravor could come down in the near future, but doesn't seem like it'd be that impactful.
Ron's down to 8, by the way.
Oh, he took an extra card. Okay.
Yeah. Ooh, that's what Brian wants to see.
All right, Terravor can be a 1/1. Now we're in business.
All right.
Mox Diamond has been played. All right.
Absolute GP says Winter Orb is one of the reasons I play Premodern. It's good in this format. It really is.
It definitely has matchups where it shines, but then there are matchups where you quickly to sideboard it out. The Elves and the Goblin decks you do not want to be playing your Wind Orb. So
No.
it's a card that is interesting, and I mean maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I like certain games where you really have to manage your resources and think, how am I going to play with this Winter Orb and play? And sometimes it's really unfortunate because your opponent either has mana producing creatures or more Mox Diamonds or whatnot, but sometimes they are also in the same position, and I really like those situations that come up. But looks like Ron is trying to cast a Mox Diamond of his own.
He actually already did,
Oh, okay.
and then he's playing and
Using
back
a
in the
wasteland.
Yep. He did pay 4 life though for an extra card, so he's down to 4.
All right, so he's been pretty aggressive with that Sylvan Library.
There's the swords.
Wes Kane, thank you for the follow. Welcome. So, oh, Brian's at 22. Okay. So,
Hey, good night, Jordan. Thanks for watching. Good to see you.
Oath of Druids and then Funeral Pyre change things from Ron's perspective? He'd have to pay 3 for an Oath, which could be next turn, and he'd have to pay 2 for the Funeral Pyre, which could be the turn after because of Mox Diamond. So I guess there's still a glimmer of hope for Ron.
Mm-hmm.
But he is only at 4 life, and I mean it's not like Brian has a bunch of reach, but just a card like Terravor would be big enough. Yeah.
It ain't over till the Terravor sings.
Is Terravor a good singer?
I mean, obviously.
All right.
Is there ever any doubt?
I don't know. Have you looked at that guy?
Yeah, he's what would he be?
A bass?
He's probably not an alto.
I'm guessing a bass.
Probably.
Be a tenor, maybe. I don't know.
What if he's a falsetto?
I don't know.
I mean, we shouldn't assume. All right. So Brian passed last turn, and then Ron passes it back. I believe we're still on Brian's turn now.
He's got all his mana untapped right now. So all his spells do cost extra because of the sphere resistance. So he's looking at his 3 mana spells he'd be able to play. I guess Terravor is like the most impactful one I can think of. Chet says he's a terrific singer. All right.
Yeah,
It's been said. He is a terrific singer. Definitely of like the Odyssey cycle. It seems like he'd be a better singer than like Antivore and Magnivore. What are the other ones?
Cognivore.
Oh, Cognivore. I don't know. Cognivore just, I probably talked about this before, but reminds me of, I don't remember his name, but the guy from Neverending Story, that like spirit dog thing.
Oh, what's his name? Balthor?
That sounds right. All right, we see Sacred Ground. Falcor.
Falcor, yeah, that's it.
All right, so the Stronghold enchantment is in play. Ron says, you can cast Armageddon right now. So, oh, did Ron use Rich Import? I'm trying to figure out why all his mana was tapped. No.
I don't think that he did.
Oh, well, Ray of Revelation is taking out the Sacred Ground, so nope. that joy was short lived.
Yeah. And now Ron has to live with knowing there's one in the graveyard where it's like, ugh,
That's a pretty miserable feeling.
ugh. And this is interesting because Brian gets to tax.
Okay. I mean, he doesn't have a huge way to leverage it. I guess like maybe just making your land drops is something that's potentially good, but there's no scroll rack in play, so it's not the end of the world. But
1, 2, 3, 4. So he's gonna go up to 7 before his draw stop.
so if Brian is going to defeat Ron, what creature is going to deal the final blow?
Ooh.
Meddling Mage? Is it Werebear or Terravore?
It's probably gonna be a meddling mage,
Okay.
but I hope it's a Terravore.
I guess it probably will be a Meddling Mage, I would think, because if you just cast a Meddling Mage and name Swords to Plowshares, it's likely that Ron has like one of those floating in his hand. And then he'll have to like Armageddon and take out the treetop villages. That's my guess of how Brian's going to finish off a game.
Yeah, seems good. It's a lot of mana though from Brian, given we have a sphere in play.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to do that on the same turn. So
Right.
you get to untap Mox Diamond and another land and then play another land. So you'd get 3 more mana. So he, in theory, if he tapped 3 this turn, he would be able to do it in 2 turns. Not this turn, but the turn after.
Yeah, he could do that, and then he may have to Ray again next turn if Ron responds with an oath.
But
Yeah.
Ron would need to play another land to play Oath because of the sphere. So that's not a guarantee. Like, I guess, and you could always just Rave Revelation before you pass the turn because you're going to untap a Mox Diamond and a land. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there it is. I mean, Swords is definitely the name.
You're going to have egg on your face if he doesn't name Swords.
Yeah, story of my life. It's Oath again, really?
Right.
Wow.
I like naming Swords. I mean, maybe he doesn't have. Well, even if he doesn't have Armageddon, I guess what if his plan is to Swords to Plowshares, Ron's blocking Treetop Village?
Yeah, I mean, if he doesn't have an Armageddon.
All right. Well, Swords gets used while Ron can, so.
I don't know. I mean, we don't know what's in his hand, but I think the play is definitely Swords.
Yeah, I think I do agree. I mean, I can see situations if like Brian had a number of Swords of Plowshares in his hand that he didn't want to turn that off, but it seems like he's so close to just beating Ron that
yeah,
if you really needed the swords, you could just attack with the Meddling Mage and have it die.
What do you think, chat? What would you have named? Would you have named Oath? Would you have named Swords? Would you have named Phantom Shoba, perhaps? What would the name have been?
Humpus Wumpus.
Hunted Wumpus it is.
Lester beat me with a Hunted Wumpus.
Did he really?
Yeah. It's on YouTube. Or maybe that one isn't up. I need to edit with that one, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember which match it was, but if it's not up, it will be the next video that I put up for Magic Online. So that one was recorded a while ago. I have been real slow to get those up.
Busy man. All right, so now we see Scroll Rack.
All right, well now the land tax engine, but he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands in play, so he's not triggering land tax right now. But
okay.
just got 3 cards in hand, and he'll pass the turn after just untapping a treetop village. So Brian has access to 3 mana, potentially 4 if he plays a land. What does Brian want to do? I guess just play a threat, right? Like Terravor would probably be fine. I mean, Ron might have another swords, but
How many lands are in graveyards? 1, 2 on Ron's side and
2
2
for
on
Brian.
Brian's. It's not a lot.
It's enough though. It's bigger than a treetop village, and Ron's at 4.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's true.
Ooh, when we talk about the singing voice of Terravor, does his voice get deeper as he gets larger?
Oh, that's a good question. I
Like
think it's higher.
what? So you think the 1/1's got the big loud big low voice?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the bigger he gets, the higher the pitch he goes.
I guess the land is made of helium, so
Yeah. That's what he does. He just feeds off all of the helium gas in the lands.
okay, so Ron is adding a Russian port. That puts his land count. Is it at 6? He's adding another sphere resistance.
Wow.
Interesting. I don't know if I'd be willing to do that. I mean, maybe it's just thinking that he just needs more time and this is his best solution, but I don't know. Here
All
is,
right, here comes the tutor.
I guess this is in response, or did he spend 3 mana?
I think it's in response.
Yeah, I guess there's no reason not to. It's not like Ron will be able to play another spell. Because if there weren't Sphere of Resistance in play, I guess they're like, in theory, a player could play something in their second main.
Mm.
But Ron's not going to be able to cast anything. So he's just getting Mox Diamond. This will be a 3 mana Mox Diamond.
2.
Oh yes, it costs 0 to begin with, yes. The card disadvantage is real when you Enlighten Tutor for a Mox Diamond. But
Discard a land and pay 2 mana.
and skip your draw step. Kind of. A priest and a rabbit walk into the bar. The rabbit says, I think there's a typo. Probably harder to grok when I just explain it, but for those in chat, probably makes more sense.
All right.
So Aaron had chimed in that Terravor's singing voice would be something like Pumbaa from The Lion King. His voice is low. Not like the lowest, though. Alright, we got an Undiscovered Paradise. Mox Diamond comes down, discards a Windswept Heath.
Yeah.
We're also at 6 cards now, so like, I don't know if Terravor is a card that, or not Terravor, Werebear is a card that is something that Brian could deploy. Well, it's funny. Like I associate Mox Diamond with speed most of the time. I feel like a lot of the decks that are playing it are trying to accelerate, but here, like these decks, They're not winning quickly, so it is cool to see the Mox Diamond used in that different aspect. Though a lot of times, like when you have like Mox Diamond and Rich Import and Winter Orb, they're all on the same side. But here, they're both players have created the situation. I guess having two Mox Diamonds is just so hard for Ron to spend his mana porting Brian.
Right.
Right, Seal Cleansing comes down. What is he looking to target?
Maybe his own Winter Orb at end of turn.
Ah, interesting. Though I don't know. I feel like if you knew you were gonna win, then maybe. But like Ron untapping all his lands, I guess he has a lot of them untapped right now. But I feel like that's a way to lose the game.
It's less good now because Armageddon's less good because Ron has a second Mox Diamond. We are officially in the grind, folks.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see like I don't see like the light at the end of the tunnel for Ron. I don't see how he shapes a game plan to kind of take advantage of the situation. Okay, we are casting another Mox Diamond. Okay.
Seems good.
I mean, that's really good with 2 Sphere Resistance and a Winter Orb in play.
I mean, you might just take out one of Ron's Mox Diamonds at this point. There's no pressure or immediacy to do it right now, but
Yeah, I was to say, like, if Ron starts doing stuff, or like there comes a point where Ron would have to do some stuff, then maybe. But yeah, there's
Sure.
not really an incentive to do it right now. What turn is it? I don't know.
I think it's over 9,000 at this point.
13.
He does take out a Mox.
Okay.
Okay. So Ron doesn't have access. Well, I was going to say he didn't have access to white mana in that moment, but it doesn't matter. Brian passes the turn. So Ron's played 2 swords to 2 meddling mages. We've seen 0 oaths. We've seen 0 swords on. Oh, we've seen 1 sword on Brian's side.
What's this in line 2 are getting? You could actually get Zurin Orb here, right?
Yeah.
Is that you just have your land tax scroll rack engine online then? There are other cards that would be more Mox Diamonds. Yeah, there is a Ray of Revelation in the yard. So I don't think you really need to kill Sylvan Library. But it is an answer to an oath, so. Well, Ron's doing a good job of not dying, but not dying is different than winning, so. Unless he's got a plan that I'm not seeing. I guess he could hope that he just. But the oath plan's just difficult with that Ray of Revelation.
The Winter Orb shuts down the treetop villages.
Yep. If you have enough Mox Diamonds, like if you have 2, then you could attack every turn. But I mean, by that point, I feel like Brian would have an answer. Gaea's Blessing.
Ooh, nice.
So
Diamond Sword, Sacred Ground.
looks like it.
Yeah.
I wonder if any Terrageddon players have had. I guess most of the time, guys blessing they would just be able to shuffle their own lands in. But I'm wondering if they ever. It seems. I was to say they ever had to shrink someone else's Terravor by shuffling away their lands.
Maybe.
Jared says I want to see a Geddon blows open. Yeah, I mean, I think Brian could from the spot just cast Armageddon and be in good shape. Yeah, the art on Guy's Blessing is very good. Do you like Brian getting a Mox Time in there? Like, maybe he doesn't have Zern Orb in his deck anymore. But that seems like just getting the tax rack engine. Oh, alright. We've got an Armageddon.
There it is. He gets 3 villages and 3 ports with it. I mean, the ports are less influential, but the villages are certainly a good snag.
Alright, so from this point, how is Brian looking? So he could just play any threat, right?
Yeah,
Werebear, Meddling Mage, or Terravor.
He's going to have to wait, obviously, just given the spheres, but Ron can't even play another diamond right now, even if he draws one.
Well, Brian would be able to play a Meddling Mage or a Werebear. Because he'd have access to 4 mana.
Yeah, next turn, obviously.
Alright, chat. I want to know what creature is Brian going to have first? Is it Meddling Mage?
I mean, it should be a third Meddling Mage on swords, but he hasn't had the card filtering that he'd like.
I feel like it's a Werebear. I'm going to go with Werebear.
I'd be down with Werebear.
Come on, Werebear.
Do you know what Brian says every time he draws a card and it's not a Werebear?
Oh, that wasn't a Werebear.
He says, Werebear.
Oh, we're out there. Where are thou bear? That was very, very good.
This is why people pay us the big bucks.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a tricky situation. It's difficult to make this board state really interesting. It is going to be really exciting when this Werebear comes down.
Mm-hmm.
Does the Werebear put on those clothes himself, or does someone have to help him?
I think someone probably helps him.
Does another bear help him, or is it like a humanoid?
I think it's actually a Drudge skeleton.
that way the Werebear gets angry that he can just regenerate.
He looks in the mirror, doesn't like what he sees, doesn't like his wardrobe, so he mauls the skeleton, and regenerates and tries a different outfit. No, absolute GP. We've got a narrative here. Don't throw any wrenches into our story.
Man pig helps.
Nice. All right, so what are we doing here? Scroll rack?
Yeah, and with the Undiscovered Paradise, that's going to come back. So land tax will be online since Ron has played a Mishra's Factory. So it's only a matter of time before Brian just kind of buries Ron in card advantage. And I mean, at this point, you could just deploy threats. Yeah, if they get answered with Swords of Plowshares, I don't think that's that big of a deal. Because you're going to be able to replace them. Just any Meddling Mage or Werebear or Terravor is good enough, I think, from this spot. How big would this Terravor be?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. Big. Big enough.
A big boy.
Who's a big boy? Who's a big boy? All right, so 3.
Oh, that's still in his deck.
Yeah.
That was one we thought would come out. I mean, it is like it is a way to answer a funeral pyre token. And under Winter Orb, it's pretty good to like bounce back a treetop village, but so Ron has played a Windswept Heath. He'll go to 3. One thing it does give him a look at a fresh 3 new cards with the Sylvan Library. Since he was only at 4, he has been kind of forced to just look at the top 3 and take one every time. But now he gets 3 new cards. But I don't know what he's looking for. I guess he got 3 new cards when he cast the Gaia's Blessing, but 4 mana, so it's a 2-drop. Wait, that one costs 5.
Yeah.
Okay, looks like
Okay.
we back that up.
I got it. Ron got really excited.
Is he excited to blow up the Winter Orb? Is that? I guess.
I guess.
There are 4 Mox Diamonds in play for Brian.
Jared wants to know the answer to the age-old question, where's the beef?
I don't know. Seal of Removal also protects your creatures from getting Swords of Plowshare, so you can just deploy them again.
Yeah.
Thank you for the follow. Nice to meet you. I got it. It's so like I look at that. I'm like, what is this trying to say? And I got it at the last second.
Hold on. There's a trick here. I know it. Give me a moment.
That to me is like one of the hardest parts that I've had on Twitch is just like reading people's usernames. It is very difficult because I know a lot of times when I watch Twitch chat, you just like come up with a pronunciation in your head and you don't need to say it, and so it doesn't matter. When you verbally try to say it, like you gotta come up with something. So
Looks like Andrew knows our newcomer. Welcome, welcome.
maybe he's just saying it's nice to meet him.
Maybe. Or maybe they're old pals with a dark past. Would probably be a more interesting story than this game state.
I'm just waiting for the creature. I'm just excited to see whether it's a Meddling Mage, a Werebear, or a Terravore. Ron is looking through his deck and getting a Seal Cleansing.
Looks like Media is an OSOG.
Ah.
So perhaps there is a dark past there.
Who has more cards left in the deck? I think... I don't know.
Maybe Ron?
Yeah, he does have multiple Gaia's Blessing, so I don't think decking would be an issue for him. Because there's no way for Brian to disrupt that, right? I guess he could have brought in Phyrexian Furnace, but
yeah,
in general, I don't think there is.
Phil's right, though. You can't get decked with the Scroll Rack in play.
But, I mean, Brian's going to... Unless Brian literally boarded out all his threats, which I don't understand why he would do that. I don't think this is going to come down to decking. Yeah, you can't get decked with Scroll Rack. That's true. Phil brings that up. Yeah, I forgot about that as well. All right, more Mishra's Factories. The treetop villages are all in play for the first one, and now the Mishra's Factories are coming out to play. But they've got a lot of work to do.
They've come to avenge their canopy comrades.
Yeah. All right, so we have well, scroll rack being used, putting 2 cards back on top. Now we're land taxing. One of the cards you put back was an island, and I think that's the only one. So it's primarily a shuffle at this point.
So when this game started yesterday, who was it that people predicted was going to win?
I don't know. Let me see if I can bring that up. 65% chose Ron and 35 picked Brian.
Ooh. There's a wasteland. We could see an upset then.
Okay, so Brian's just gonna fight a threat. That's all he's got to do, I think. What if he just has a way to win and he's just enjoying Magic too much?
This is the best game ever. Never want it to end.
I don't know if I've ever done that in a tournament match of Magic. There might have been like a casual game where I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna try and deck out my opponent as compared. Like, it's also kind of just like a challenge to yourself. Can I win by just decking them out as compared to killing them with damage? 5 mana. Oh, I thought it was a Terravor. It's an Aura of Silence. Alright. Are you just taking out the Mox Diamond? You waiting?
I guess.
I mean, it being in play, like, that one costs way more. It costs 6.
No.
Oh.
Okay.
Wrong.
All right.
Wrong. I'm probably not going to be able to cast any of my relevant spells at this point.
There we go. Okay, let's unmute him. Holy God.
It's funny that Ron was like the prison player, but also the Winter Orb made it feel like Ron was in the prison, I guess. So
Right.
let's jump over and listen into our players. Hello, friends.
Hey guys.
Well, that was.
Hello? Oh, I gotta unmute them actually.
That was. I enjoyed that. I mean, I don't know if you guys can say the same thing, or if chat was as involved, but it was interesting.
The match was fine. I played like absolute garbage tonight. So.
Were there things that you could have done differently? I mean, it seems like there's a really difficult tension for you the whole time because you can't play too much of the board. You get blown up by Armageddon then, and it's like if you don't do anything, eventually something is going to happen. It seems tricky from your end.
Well, there was a couple times that I just kind of assumed that he played a land because he had played land on the subsequent turns, and I played a land and gave him a land tax trigger that I didn't need to. I think I did that 2 or 3 times. Game 1, I didn't really know what he was on, so the 6-card hand that I kept was just amazing against elves and super mediocre against what he actually played.
Mm-hmm.
It was a turn one oath with 2 swords back up, so it was certainly ready to beat an elves matchup. Game 2, I don't even remember the 6-card hand that I kept, but it wasn't super exciting. I really wanted to hit an early sphere in this matchup to make him play from behind, but and avoid the turn 1 land tax, make him build up his mana in order to actually cast the strong cards against me, the land taxes and the scroll racks and all that. So to give myself a little bit of breathing room before he starts building up his advantage. But I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, just looking at the board that Brian had, there is a lot of interaction. So many artifacts, 2 Ray of Revelations, another Aura of Silence, a Seal of Cleansing.
Yeah, his sideboard was pretty stacked against enchantments.
Yeah.
So It was an
It's
uphill battle for me too.
it's so tough too for you, Ron, right? You have all those lands in the deck, but the more lands you play, the more he gets the land tax, and he has swords to answer your Nishobas, and he has all
Mhm.
of the removal of the sideboard. So you were definitely fighting an uphill battle coming into this matchup.
Well, I needed to get the winter orb off the table because my path to victory that game was manlands, and it just is a major drag on my mana if I'm activating and tapping manlands. So what I really needed was to get that winter orb off the table, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, you were almost there, and then the Aura of Silence came down, and yeah, it's a
Yeah, I'm really tired, so I was miscounting and just playing
there
like
were a lot of additions. +1 from the spheres, +2 from the Aura of Silence. Yeah, so cards are not casting what they normally cost. Brian, I do have one question. There was the last Medley Mage you played, we were anticipating it naming swords to plowshares because Ron was only at 4.
I know. I guess I apologize to Ron and anyone else that stayed up late for, I guess, not naming swords.
Okay.
Because they made the game last like 40 minutes longer. Yeah, I don't know. I like, obviously if I name swords there, like I can win in like 2 turns. What I was just afraid of, because I think at the time Ron only had like
I
one
did have
sword.
I did have 3 treetop villages in play.
Yeah, so it's like if they get to block, it's annoying. I think there was only 1 sphere, so there's like a world where he could be like sandbagging like an extra Mox Diamond or something weird. And I had the Ray Revelation in the graveyard, so I probably was covered. I was just like, I felt pretty far ahead. So I'm like, the only way I lose is if he sneaks in into Shoba and I can't deal with it. So I'm like, I'll just make him have another swords, and he happened to. But if he doesn't, then it's irrelevant. But yeah, I mean, I guess if I could review the film, I probably was supposed to name swords for sure.
No, that's fine. It was just we just wanted to know your line of thought at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
So in game 2, I was using library really aggressively because I could not find a white source of mana. So I had to dig really hard to find that Mox Diamond so that I had a white source of mana in order to swords that first meddling mage. So that took my life total pretty low.
Yeah, I definitely got lucky in the sense that besides you digging aggressively and me getting a couple hits, like Sylvan Library was essentially just like a free divining top for most of the game because you got stuck at 4 for like so long.
Yeah.
Even if you're at 5, it's like totally different because then I'm like, I probably have to blow my Revelation on it because it may be too scary, but then I'm more vulnerable to both. So yeah, it's weird.
What is your impression of this matchup? I guess I was thinking it was a little bit closer, but kind of on paper, it felt like the Terrageddon deck is kind of just in control of everything that happens.
Yeah, I was. So I've never played it before. Like I guess a fun fact for anyone watching: all 3 decks I registered for this event I've never played before, so it'll be interesting each week. But yeah, going into the, I was in my head kind of preparing for Suicide Black because it did feel like I could ignore the oaths. Like I see where Ron's coming from because it's like I have to win with creatures. So if there's an oath on the board, especially game 1, it's really annoying. I only have like 1 disenchant effect. So if he ever gets 2 oaths, it's like I'm not really sure how I'm winning the game besides drawing like a bunch of swords. But like since the backup plan is man lands and like the deck is like kind of mana hungry, in the sense that of how many lands it plays and it's playing Sphere, I felt like with my Wastelands and Armageddon, like I was pretty good. So once I saw Mox Diamond on Ron's side, I was like, oh, thank gosh, I'm not gonna die to like shadow creatures.
Did you have an inclination, Ron, that he was going to bring the Terrageddon deck?
I actually expected elves.
Okay.
But I kind of had my backup plan that I thought that this matchup would be closer than that was. But I mean, I had to mulligan both games and keep mediocre hands because I didn't want to mull to 5.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the game 1, I actually put the second oath on the bottom on my mulligan.
Okay.
And so after you blew up that first oath, I never saw another oath the entire matchup.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
that was pretty rough.
Yeah, it's funny. I put the swamp into play in game 1 because I assumed I was going to sacrifice it to Zornorb to like get to trigger land tax. But it was funny, like the one turn I was tanking for a while, like the swamp like completely messed me up because if it was like a white or a blue land when you were tapped out, I think I had the chance to play like double Meddling Mage on like Oath and Swords. So that way, like, I would felt pretty like pretty good that I would be safe. But look, I guess like my quadruple land tax double scroll rack engine was enough to
That's plenty.
yeah, move on to the next game.
We just had a raid from Magic Mike's with a party of 54. So welcome everyone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we are just wrapping things up for our night. I'll give a quick rundown of what the Premodern Showdown Series, as I assume some of you are new. But
Welcome.
Premodern is a format that uses the card pool between 4th edition and Scourge. And what we have in the Premodern Showdown Series is we have 8 players. They've each brought 3 Premodern decks, and they'll play each other person. So they'll play 7 other people in the Showdown Series. And each week, the opponent bans one of their decks. So they have a choice of 2 decks to play, and also they're going to ban one of their opponent's decks as well. So there's kind of an interesting tension of whenever they come to a night, they don't know exactly what they're going to play against, and it shows a lot of variety of, which is already one of the features of Premodern, that there's a lot of different decks you can play. But we're going to play over some weeks and then eventually crown a Premodern Showdown Series 3 champion. So
Tune in Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
We'll be back next Tuesday.
All right. I know in the chat, Brian, how did you cyber, or what cards did you take out? I guess is kind of what we're thinking. We were looking at your deck and we weren't exactly sure what cards you would take out, because we're pretty sure the 5 cards you wanted to bring in, but what cards did you shave from your main deck?
Yeah, I actually brought in 6 cards.
Okay.
I brought in the enchantment killer stuff and the winter orb, which
Okay.
we saw in serious fashion. And it's kind of funny. I had this sideboard on the fly because I honestly didn't expect to play this matchup, but I took out the Zorn orb because I felt like my life didn't really matter. In that game, it was kind of weird because there were times I wish I had like casual ways to sacrifice lands,
Okay.
but it ended up not mattering. And then I shaved 1 engineer plague. I wanted to keep 1 just in case I got like funeral pyre and I can name like spirit or something weird to just make sure like that never happens. And I can always name like assembly worker or something to like, not take as many hits. And then I actually took out the werebears. I don't know if that's correct or not, but I just got a vibe that like from game 1, I was like, oh, Meddling Mage is actually probably my win condition because like it ensures I can't get comboed or that my guys can't get killed. So I was like, I'm probably just gonna beat him down with 2/2s, and then because I can always just like Wasteland or Armageddon the man lands that would block. So I actually just took out the werebears. So
Yeah,
I don't know if that's correct.
That is something that we considered. I think we talked about taking out like Seal of Removal and Engineered Plagues first, but then eventually coming down to some of the werebears. It was just we had made it a point of, I had talked about which creature was going to kill Ron in the second game, and I was rooting for werebear, but unfortunately he didn't have the opportunity.
But yeah, unfortunately, it was not. No.
It's not
right.
to be.
Do you guys have anything you want to add tonight, the players?
Not me. I'm pretty set.
Okay, well,
congratulations, Brian.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was nice meeting you, Ryan. We haven't hung out before, so
yeah,
it was a pleasure.
To all the people in the raids, we have a couple of follows. We have H2O Happy Dude and Alexander McAfee. Thank you for the follow. And if anyone's new and has some questions, we could field those questions real quick. But otherwise, we'll probably be wrapping things up for the evening. So,
You guys are free to go. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Ron.
No problem. I know Ron had a bounce. I can hang if you want me to, or I can leave if the two of you want to do your hosting duties.
Yeah, we're probably gonna wrap things up real quick. So, but
All right, cool. Alrighty.
yeah, I'll bring up
Thank
the
you all.
schedule we have for the upcoming matches. So on Tuesday, Ron will be back and he'll be facing off against Aaron, and then the late night match will be Ben against Jared. So I'm trying to think. What are you looking forward to seeing? So I guess we haven't seen Ron's replenish deck.
Right.
For Aaron, he's played Sly and he's played Stifle Not. So he has not played Elves.
Let's see some elves decks.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we all know it's a good deck. People prepared for it anyway. Let's see some elves next week. I'm ready.
So Ben, we've seen play his Rebel stacks, Death and Taxes twice. He also has Elves and I think Sly is his other deck. And then Jared has Goblins, which we've seen, and Dracoblast, which we've seen, and his last deck is the 5-color Terrageddon. So, yeah. Yeah, I guess it will be fun to see Elves. It's kind of fun that everyone kind of laments it or talks about it getting banned or whatnot. It wasn't banned tonight, and neither player brought it. But I do know, like, in this format, when you can kind of prepare, and it's not the same as like pre-sideboarding, but you know you have a likely chance of playing Elves. I think does allow you to kind of put a target on that deck's head, and I think that has made people a little more hesitant to bring it to battle, but I'm sure we will see it. So
100%.
Yeah.
Both in the main deck and in the sideboard, right? You know, we see it with the Fire Ices, we see it with the Plagues in the main deck, we see it with the sideboard options. So Elves is almost Sly this time around,
Mhm.
right? We talked about in the series 1 how people were just like, well, I'll just ban Sly, or I'll prepare for it or whatever. I'll just have a plan for it. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. But it would be nice to see it play out for us, but also for our viewers as well. So maybe we'll see it next week. But I'll keep my fingers crossed.
All right. I don't see any questions from the chat, so with that, I think we'll be wrapping up. Do want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch and the new follows. Do want to mention CardSphere as our sponsor this season. We want to thank them. So that is a resource that you can use to trade, buy, and sell paper Magic cards. Is a pretty cool way if you are into trading, because I don't know if it's more of I got older or if the game changed, but I feel like I don't trade with people like or in paper. It's not like I bring my trade binder to tournaments that I go to anymore, and it is really fun to like just get rid of cards that you don't want and others do, and then get cards that you do want. That is a really cool feeling, and CardSphere is a perfect place to facilitate that. So, is there anything you want to add, Flint, before we head out tonight?
I think I would just once again thank everyone for tuning in. If you were a part of the Magic Mike's raid, welcome. If you're still here, tune in next Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, for some pre-modern content, and make sure to hit that subscribe button for Mike. He puts a lot of work into this format, producing content. There aren't a lot of people doing that in the pre-modern world, but he's definitely one of them. And be sure to check out our friends of the show as well. Join the Premodern Facebook group. Come play games with us. The monthlies are a blast. So we'd love to see you there.
All right. With that, I will just say thanks everyone for watching, and until next time, take care.
Night, everybody.